The world is loud, full of voices shouting for attention, comfort, and shortcuts. But somewhere in the silence before dawn, a different kind of man rises. He doesn't scroll. He doesn't rush. He waits. Because he knows that discipline is not built in noise, it's forged in stillness. The Stoics called it mastery over the self. Napoleon Hill called it the secret of destiny. And today you're going to hear the one rule that every great mind, from Marcus Aurelius to Hill himself, lived and died by, the rule that turns ordinary effort into unstoppable power. So listen carefully, because this isn't motivation. It's a mirror. And when you look into it, you'll see the man you were meant to become. The world is still asleep. The city outside is hushed beneath a blanket of shadow, but one man stands awake before a mirror. The air is cold, so cold that his breath fogs the glass before him. He studies the reflection, staring back the same face, the same eyes, yet something inside feels unsettled, unfinished. The silence presses against him, heavy, honest. This is not the first dawn he's faced, but it feels different. It feels like a test. His eyes search the mirror not for perfection, but for control, the kind of control that no one sees, that no one can give. In this fragile stillness, thoughts begin to move fast, loud, merciless. The mind replays old battles, the promises made and broken, the mornings missed, the goals left half-built. He feels the ache of disappointment, not in the world, but in himself. He hears the familiar whisper, maybe tomorrow, maybe later, maybe never. But this time, something inside refuses to yield. There is a quiet rebellion forming beneath his ribs, a voice, calm yet unbreakable, rising from within. He recalls a sentence once read in an old time-worn book by Napoleon Hill. Self-discipline begins with the mastery of your thoughts. If you do not control what you think, you cannot control what you do. That single line returns to him now, like an echo traveling through time, piercing through layers of noise, excuses, and delay. It's more than a quote, it's a commandment. And for the first time, he truly understands it. Discipline, he realizes, is not about adding more to life, not about stacking tasks, chasing motivation, or fighting endless battles of willpower. It is about subtraction, the removal of noise, the quiet rejection of impulses that weaken. The Stoics called it mastery of the inner citadel, the fortress of the mind. For when the world outside shakes, only those who stand still within survive. He closes his eyes. The breath slows. The noise fades. He can hear the faint hum of his heartbeat, steady, rhythmic, alive. He does not breathe to calm the storm. He breathes to remember he is the storm. He is both the chaos and the calm, the destroyer and the builder. He does not wait for control. He creates it right here, in this breath, in this decision. The first light of dawn leaks through the window, touching his face with pale gold. It feels like a crown unearned, but waiting. The world will wake soon, demanding everything: attention, reaction, speed, emotion. But for now, he stands before the mirror as the sole ruler of his own kingdom, the mind. He whispers to himself not as an affirmation, but as a declaration of war. I will not move with emotion, I will move with purpose. These words fall from his mouth like iron, grounding him, centering him, burning into his reflection. Because he knows the truth. Every great empire of achievement, every legend of endurance, every man who conquered fate began with this, the decision to rule the self, to command the unseen before commanding the world. He looks deeper into his own eyes and sees something ancient awakening. The Stoics spoke of it, the inner order, the soul that cannot be shaken by pleasure or pain. Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." He understands now that Hill and the Stoics were speaking of the same empire, the empire within. He takes one final breath, deep and deliberate. He imagines the mind as a vast, echoing hall, once filled with the noise of fear, doubt, and endless reaction. One by one, those voices fall silent. In their place rises something cleaner, sharper, the voice of command. Discipline, he realizes, is not a cage. It's the key. It's the invisible architecture that gives shape to freedom. Without it, every dream collapses into dust. With it, even silence becomes power. He thinks of all the times he surrendered to impulse, the moments he chose, emotion over principle, comfort over clarity. Each was a small death, a quiet betrayal. But this morning there will be no betrayal. The body will obey, the mind will lead. The heart will follow purpose, not desire. He straightens his spine. The air feels different now, alive with direction. The light outside grows stronger, spilling across the room like liquid fire. It doesn't feel like a sunrise. It feels like an awakening. He imagines every man in history who rose before dawn, warriors, philosophers, creators, standing in that same stillness, facing the same invisible enemy, fear, laziness, emotion, the noise within. And he realizes they all faced it the same way by choosing not to fight chaos, but to command it, by standing still while the world trembled. Discipline is not about saying yes to everything that feels productive. It's about saying no to everything that weakens you. It's the art of restraint, the decision to be unmoved by temporary emotion. The Stoics built their empires on reason. Hill built his philosophy on purpose, and the man in the mirror, he now builds his destiny on the fusion of both. The light grows brighter, the reflection becomes clearer, the doubt fades, the voice inside grows steady, calm, resolute. He knows the day will bring resistance, temptation will whisper, comfort will call, but the decision has already been made. The storm has already been claimed. The rule has already been written, not on paper, but in his being. I will not move with emotion. I will move with purpose. He repeats it once more, slower this time, like a vow carved into eternity, because this is no longer just a phrase. It's a law, the Stoic rule, the law that binds emotion beneath purpose, the code that Napoleon Hill understood, that success begins not in the hands, but in the mind that commands them. As the first full rays of dawn break across his face, he smiles. It's not joy, it's recognition. The dawn doesn't just mark a new day, it marks a coronation, the beginning of his reign over the only empire that truly matters, himself. And in that silence before the noise, before the world awakens, he feels it, a flicker of command, a whisper of destiny. The man who once searched for control has found something far greater. He has found stillness, and from stillness comes power. The day has begun, but the real battle hasn't started yet. It's not the world outside that threatens him. It's the quiet one waiting inside. The battlefield is his mind, unseen, unspoken, yet relentless. He sits at a desk. The morning light filters through half-drawn blinds, cutting across papers, books, and plans that seem to stare back at him in judgment. On the surface, it's just another day. But deep within, a storm brews silent, familiar, dangerous. He can feel it, that slow pull toward distraction, the subtle invitation to comfort, the mind whispering, rest a little longer, check your phone, skip today, you've done enough. That voice sounds gentle, but it's poison. It's the same voice that has stolen countless dreams, disguised as reason, disguised as self-care. It is the voice of the enemy within. He grips the pen tighter. He knows this voice too well, the one that convinces you to stop just before greatness, the one that tells you discipline can wait, that excellence is optional. The Stoics called it the inner tyrant. Napoleon Hill called it the hypnotic rhythm, that invisible current of habit pulling a man away from his purpose. Every time you listen to it, it grows stronger. Every time you resist it, it weakens. He looks at the empty page before him and begins to write 3 words: emotion, reaction, regret. Then beneath them, 3 more: observation, reflection, control. 2 paths, 2 fates, 2 versions of the same man. One is ruled by impulse, the other by intention. The first lives as a slave to circumstance, the second as a master of destiny. He stares at the words, letting their weight settle. Emotion, reaction, regret. That's the loop that has destroyed empires, broken families, and silenced purpose. It's what happens when we let emotion become the driver. The Stoic rule is clear. The moment you react, you surrender. True power lies not in striking back, but in standing still. He breathes deeply and studies his thoughts as if they were wild animals, not to kill them, but to understand their pattern. He watches irritation rise. He watches doubt flicker. He watches impatience whisper. Each emotion comes and goes, like clouds moving across the mind's horizon. He doesn't resist them. He observes them, because what is seen clearly can no longer control. In that moment of stillness, He feels the truth unfold. The enemy within isn't anger, it isn't fear, it's the illusion that these emotions define who you are. They don't. They are weather temporary storms passing through the unchanging sky of the self. Hill once wrote, "You either control your mind or it controls you. There is no in between." The man who loses that inner war may still look successful, still appear strong, but inside he is conquered by emotion, by habit, by the comfort of surrender. The clock ticks louder, the air thickens. He feels resistance, that invisible wall between who he is and who he could be. But now he knows its name. The enemy is not failure. It's the comfort that leads to it. The discipline he seeks will not be found in loud victories, but in quiet refusals, the refusal to give in to the easy path, to the soft voice that says, later. He recalls the wisdom of Epictetus. No man is free who is not master of himself. Freedom is not granted, it's earned in the trenches of self-command, and every day is a new battlefield. He looks again at the paper before him. Those two sets of words now look like a mirror, two versions of the same soul. Emotion, reaction, regret, that was yesterday's man. Observation, reflection, control, that is who he must become. He leans back in his chair and closes his eyes. He imagines the mind as a room. Inside it are voices, some old, some young. Some whisper with fear, others shout with pride. All demand attention, but he does not answer them anymore. He listens, observes, and lets them pass. Each time he chooses silence over reaction, the room grows quieter. Each time he resists the pull of distraction, his focus sharpens. The chaos begins to fade. He remembers a passage from Hill's teachings. Your mind is your greatest servant or your worst master. Train it daily. That word train sticks with him because discipline isn't a feeling. It's a practice. You don't wait for control. You build it repetition by repetition, moment by moment. Every time he chooses control over chaos, he forges another link in the chain of mastery. His pen moves again, slowly, deliberately. He writes a single line beneath his earlier words. Every moment I choose control, I rewrite my fate. He reads it aloud, softly, like a prayer whispered to himself. Each syllable sinks deeper, stronger, because he now understands discipline isn't the elimination of emotion. It's the elevation of response. To feel deeply but to act deliberately, that is the Stoic rule. The sunlight shifts across the desk. Shadows retreat. The morning hum grows louder. The world moves again, but he remains still, focused, centered. For the first time, he feels what it means to be unshaken, not emotionless, but unmoved by emotion. He knows the enemy will return tomorrow, the next day, the day after that. It will wear new faces, fatigue, temptation, anger, fear. But now he has a weapon that cannot be taken awareness. The moment you can see the enemy, it loses its power. He stands, leaving the paper on the desk, his quiet declaration of war and wisdom. As he walks toward the door, he catches his reflection again, but this time there is no searching, no confusion, only recognition. He nods once to the man in the glass, a silent acknowledgement between warrior and king. Every moment I choose control, I rewrite my fate. The words echo in his mind as he steps into the light. The battlefield remains the same, the world still loud, still tempting, but he is not the same man who woke up this morning. The storm inside has been named, and that is the first victory. For the greatest battles are never fought with swords or shouts. They are fought in silence within the walls of the mind where no one sees but everything is decided. And as the city awakens, he walks forward, not to fight the enemy within, but to lead it. Because the man who commands his chaos becomes unstoppable. The world outside stirs again, footsteps, engines, voices, motion. Everyone rushing towards something, anything, afraid of silence, but not him. He sits quietly, unmoved, eyes closed, hands resting gently on his knees. Around him, the noise of the world swirls like wind around a mountain, but inside, there is only stillness. Stillness, the lost art, the power that modern life fears most. The Stoics called it tranquility, the unshakable calm of a man who owns himself. Napoleon Hill called it the seat of control, that sacred space between thought and action, between impulse and decision. He has begun to understand what few ever realize. Stillness is not weakness. Stillness is command. It is the proof that motion serves him, not the other way around. He breathes deeply. Inhale, the world enters. Exhale, the world leaves. Within that rhythm lies the oldest secret of mastery, the ability to remain centered when everything demands reaction. He thinks back to his old habits, how often he moved out of fear, how often he spoke from frustration, how often he acted from emotion. Each moment of reaction was a surrender. He thought he was being decisive. In truth, he was being driven by noise, by impulse, by the invisible pull of urgency. Now, he waits, listens, observes. He lets the storm pass before moving. He has learned the Stoic rule. When you act from emotion, you serve chaos. When you act from stillness, chaos serves you. The room around him feels alive. The soft hum of electricity, the faint creak of the chair, the whisper of his breath. He realizes that life is not something to escape, it's something to witness. To be still is not to do nothing. It is to see everything clearly. Napoleon Hill wrote, "There are no limitations to the mind except those we acknowledge. But how can a man know his mind if he never pauses long enough to meet it?" Stillness is the mirror through which the mind reveals its true reflection. Without it, we live as strangers to ourselves. He imagines the mind as a lake. Every thought, every worry, every desire, a stone thrown into the water. The surface ripples, distorts. You cannot see clearly when the water is disturbed. But when you stop throwing stones, when you let it settle, the reflection returns. Clarity is not created, it's uncovered. The greatest thinkers of history understood this. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire, yet wrote his deepest truths in the quiet of the night. Hill built his philosophy in solitude, listening to the still voice of intention. They both knew, to lead others, you must first lead silence. He takes another breath, slow, deliberate. The body obeys, the mind aligns. The noise outside fades into background. Inside, something extraordinary happens. Time slows. The borders between thought and breath blur. He feels as though he has stepped outside the river of movement and now watches it flow from above. There is power here, not loud, not violent, but absolute. The kind of power that bends reality because it bends reaction. This is the rule of stillness. To be unmoved is to be unstoppable. He opens his eyes. The room hasn't changed, but everything feels different. The air seems lighter, the colors sharper. Every small sound a drop of water. A faint hum feels like music. The world hasn't quieted. He has. And because he has, the world now obeys a slower rhythm, his rhythm. He remembers a quote from the Stoic teacher Seneca. "He who is brave is free." He smiles. Freedom, he realizes, doesn't mean running faster. It means not being chased by your own mind. He stands. The motion is slow, precise, deliberate. There is no hurry in his steps. The day will meet him when he chooses. This is not arrogance, it is alignment. He no longer moves to escape discomfort. He moves because it is time. He walks to the window. The street below is alive, people rushing, horns blaring, phones ringing. The contrast is striking. The noise no longer stirs him, it informs him. He watches it with quiet detachment, a reminder of what most men become when they lose stillness. Slaves to urgency, addicted to speed, allergic to silence. But he is no longer one of them. He is building something sacred, a mind that acts, not reacts. He recalls one of Hill's laws. Control your mental attitude, and you control your destiny. Control requires awareness. Awareness requires stillness. The rule is simple, but eternal. If you cannot sit in silence, you cannot stand in strength. He closes his eyes again and imagines the path ahead. Challenges, temptations, failures, victories. He sees them all coming. And yet in his mind's vision, he stands calm at the center, unmoved by any of it. Because he understands the secret. Events have no power, only perception does. To practice stillness is to practice power. The kind of power that cannot be taken, only surrendered. The kind of power that endures when everything else fades. He whispers softly, almost inaudibly, "He who masters silence masters destiny." The words linger in the air like a spell, reshaping the energy around him. They feel ancient, as if they've been spoken by every wise soul before him, passed down through time to awaken him now. He begins to move again, but differently. Each step carries intention. Each motion feels deliberate. Even the smallest act, pouring water, tying shoes, opening a door, becomes a meditation. He is learning that discipline is not built only in great acts of willpower, but in the sacred precision of everyday stillness. The world has conditioned him to chase, to react, to prove, but stillness has taught him the opposite: to observe, to align, to be. The more he listens to silence, the more it speaks. And what it says is simple: be where you are, fully. Do what must be done, completely. Let nothing shake the center. As he steps outside, the morning light touches his face again. It's the same sun as yesterday, but he sees it differently. The world feels slower now, not because it changed, but because he did. Stillness has widened the space between impulse and intention, between emotion and execution. That space is where mastery lives. He takes one more breath, calm, grounded, present. The rule of stillness has been learned, not through words, but through being. He doesn't need to announce it, post it, or explain it. The still man never does. His energy speaks louder than his voice. His calm shakes louder than chaos. He who masters silence masters destiny. The day begins. The world will test him: noise, distraction, pressure, but he will move only when purpose commands. Because he now knows what the restless never discover, that in stillness lies supremacy. And as the city roars to life beneath him, he walks forward with quiet authority. The calm within him is not emptiness, it is creation. It is the birthplace of every great act, every true victory, every empire of thought. This is the rule of stillness, the third law of unstoppable discipline. Not to fight chaos, not to flee from it, but to stand so still that chaos learns your name. The sun has risen 1,000 times before, but this one feels heavier, not in burden, in meaning. The man moves through his routine with quiet precision. The cold water across his face, the same chair, the same book, the same stretch of silence before motion. Every action deliberate, every movement a small vow renewed. To the world it looks ordinary, repetitive, even dull. But inside, something sacred is happening. The ordinary is becoming holy. Each repetition forges another link in the chain of mastery. He remembers Hill's warning: if you cannot endure the small disciplines, you will collapse under great opportunity. The truth stings, but it's liberating. Discipline is not tested in moments of glory. It's built in hours of repetition. At first, the body resists. Muscles ache, mind wanders, comfort whispers its familiar lullaby. But he keeps moving. Again, 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 until repetition burns through resistance, leaving only rhythm pure, unwavering rhythm. The Stoics believed virtue was practice. Hill believed success was habit, and both agreed greatness is not a moment of inspiration. It is the result of repetition so consistent that the world mistakes it for destiny. He feels the burn in his hands, the weight in his breath. Every drop of sweat is proof that pain can be transformed into progress, that discomfort is not punishment but preparation. He once believed motivation would carry him. Now he knows motivation is a spark. Repetition is the fire that keeps it alive when the night grows long. Outside, the city moves at its own frantic pace. Inside, he moves at his deliberate, exact, sovereign. He has learned that routine is not a prison, it is a forge. The hammer of consistency strikes against the anvil of time, and what emerges is unbreakable. There is beauty in monotony. The Stoics called it constancy, the steady hand that does not tremble no matter the storm. Napoleon Hill called it persistence, the one trait that separates the successful from the forgotten. He remembers those words as he works: persistence is to the character of man what carbon is to steel. The phrase hums through his mind like a heartbeat. Each act of discipline adds carbon to his spirit, hardening resolve into steel. The fire of repetition does not roar, it hums. Quiet, constant, patient. The kind of fire that doesn't burn you at once but shapes you over time. It demands surrender, not excitement. It asks one question every morning: will you do it again? And every morning he answers the same: yes. Hours pass. The day unfolds in repetition work, thought, movement, silence, no novelty, no applause. Yet deep inside he feels expansion. His focus sharpens, his reactions soften. His thoughts align with purpose. The mind that once scattered in 1,000 directions now flows like a single river, cutting through doubt with precision. Repetition has become meditation. The once mundane tasks, tying shoes, lifting weights, writing pages, reviewing goals, have turned into symbols of order. Each small act whispers, I am in control. He begins to understand what mastery really is: not doing new things well, but doing the old things without losing heart. Every repetition is a vote for the man he wants to become. Every repetition erases the man he used to be. He hears Hill again. You are what you repeatedly do. Excellence then is not an act but a habit. He smiles. The truth is simple but brutal. If you skip the small disciplines, you forfeit the grand victories. The world will never know the cost of consistency, but it will always feel its results. Night falls, the body aches, the temptation to rest without purpose creeps in, but he remembers the fire of repetition burns only as long as you feed it. And so, he does one more rep, one more page, one more breath of focused silence. Not because he must, but because he can. Discipline is the fire that purifies the weak until only purpose remains. He repeats the words like a mantra, each syllable striking against the anvil of fatigue. The body obeys the voice, the mind obeys the mission. He recalls the Stoic belief that nothing of value comes easy, and the Hill philosophy that nothing of permanence comes fast. Repetition bridges both worlds, patience and progress bound together in the forge of time. He looks back at his reflection, the same mirror, the same man, yet everything is different. The lines on his face now tell a story of endurance. The eyes, once searching, now hold focus. He sees not perfection, but proof. Proof that discipline is not about feeling ready. It's about doing it anyway. Outside, the city lights flicker like restless thoughts. Inside, a single candle burns steady, unwavering, eternal. That is the image of repetition, light that never falters, no matter how long the night. He understands now that repetition is love, love for the vision, love for the process, love for the man he is becoming. Every act of repetition is a declaration, I am still here. Every sunrise, another chance to burn. Every movement, another moment to prove that emotion will not decide his destiny, discipline will. He wipes the sweat from his brow, exhales, and lets silence settle again. The day is done, but the mission continues. The fire still burns, not loud but deep. Tomorrow, he will rise again. Same mirror, same breath, same path. The world will call it routine. He will call it rebirth. Because the fire of repetition doesn't just shape habits, it reshapes identity. Discipline is the fire that purifies the weak until only purpose remains. And as the last echo of that truth fades into darkness, the man smiles, calm, tired, alive. The fire within him no longer asks for permission, it simply burns. He sits alone again, the same man, the same silence, but something inside him has sharpened. The repetition has carved away the noise, and what remains is edge, calm, cold, clear. Today he faces a different battle, not with his body, not with time, but with attachment. Attachment, the silent chain that binds even the disciplined. The hunger for validation, the need for results, the desire for control, each one a thread that ties the mind to outcomes it cannot command. Napoleon Hill once warned, your only limitation is the one which you set up in your own mind. He never said those limitations were loud. Most of them whisper in expectations, in comparisons, in the need to be seen. The Stoics had a weapon for this detachment. They called it apatheia, the power to remain unmoved by that which you cannot govern. Not indifference, but independence. The mind untethered. He looks down at his hands scarred from labor, steady from practice. These hands can control effort, not outcome. He finally understands that distinction. To be attached is to hand your piece to chance. To be detached is to reclaim your throne. The candle before him bends in the wind, its flame wavering. He studies it, that small light so fragile, so resilient. It bends but does not break. The flame doesn't control the wind. It simply endures it. That, he realizes, is the Stoic sword, to endure without anger, to yield without surrender. He breathes in deeply. He feels the weight of every desire he has ever carried to succeed, to be understood, to be admired, to win. And then he lets them go. Not because he doesn't care, but because caring too much chains him to things that do not obey him. I control effort. The rest belongs to the universe. The words fall softly, like stones into still water. Ripples fade. The air lightens. He thinks of the countless times attachment drove him when he worked not from purpose but from fear of failure, when he spoke not from truth but from need to impress. Each moment was weakness disguised as ambition. The Stoics would call that slavery. Hill would call it misplaced focus. Both would call it the enemy of mastery. He rises and walks to the window. The world outside moves fast ambition, competition, noise. He watches, detached yet aware. There was a time he'd feel behind. Now, he simply observes. The race never ends because the track is an illusion. The sky cracks with thunder, a reminder. You control nothing outside yourself. He smiles faintly. For the first time, he feels free, not because life is easy, but because it can no longer own him. He recalls a passage from Marcus Aurelius. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Strength, he understands, is not in holding on. It is in letting go willingly, consciously, calmly. He turns from the window and faces the mirror again. His reflection looks back, calm, centered, detached. There is no arrogance here, no coldness, only presence. Detachment doesn't make him distant. It makes him whole. He remembers how often emotion once dictated his direction. Now, emotion still visits, but it no longer commands. It's an advisor, not a ruler. That is the Stoic sword control of response, not the world. He feels that truth vibrate in his bones. Every desire that once dragged him forward now feels optional. Every fear that once pulled him backward now feels distant. He has learned to walk the middle path where action flows without obsession, where effort burns without expectation. He sits again. The candle still flickers. He closes his eyes. In the darkness, detachment becomes clear. It's not that he stops dreaming. It's that he stops clinging. It's not that he stops fighting. It's that he fights without rage. It's not that he stops feeling. It's that feeling no longer blinds him. To master the self is to master loss before it happens. He sees the truth now. Life is constant change. Victories fade. Losses pass. Applause dies. Critics vanish. The only constant is the state of one's own mind. Detachment is not giving up. It is growing up. The Stoics trained their minds to accept death, rejection, uncertainty, not to live without fear, but to act despite it. Hill said the same thing differently. The man who cannot be defeated is the man who never quits within. Detachment ensures that, because when your sense of self is no longer chained to outcomes, defeat becomes impossible. He imagines himself walking through fire, each flame a test of patience, each spark a temptation to panic, but he doesn't flinch, because the man who owns nothing fears nothing, and the man who fears nothing commands everything. The candle's flame steadies again. The storm outside eases. It is as if the world has surrendered to his calm. He exhales, slow, controlled, present. He now understands that discipline without detachment is suffering. But discipline with detachment is liberation. The Stoic sword isn't forged in rage, it's sharpened in acceptance. It cuts through illusion, through noise, through dependency. It allows the man to stand alone, unshaken, unowned, unbroken. He opens his eyes once more. The world is still there, imperfect, unpredictable, loud. But now he sees it as it is, not as he wishes it to be. He has learned the law of detachment. You gain control by surrendering the need to control. I control effort. The rest belongs to the universe. The words echo again, not as a mantra, but as truth. He blows out the candle. Darkness floods the room, peaceful, complete. But in that darkness, something glows still, the steady light of a mind detached, alive, and utterly disciplined. Tomorrow, the world will tempt him again with praise, with pressure, with expectation. But he will meet it as he meets everything now, with silence, with composure, with the invisible sword of detachment. For the man who no longer chases is the man who is finally free to arrive. And in that freedom lies the next evolution of discipline, not control of the world, but mastery of self. Peace is not the absence of storms, it is standing still within them. The storm outside fades, the room falls silent, Hesit's unmoved. And somewhere deep within the Stoic sword gleams. There was a time when emotion ruled him. Anger burned too quickly. Fear whispered too often. Desire clouded every decision. Now, he stands still, the same emotions, still present, but different, transformed. Napoleon Hill once called it the law of emotional transmutation, the greatest secret of success, the alchemy of the human mind. Hill said, "The energy of sex, emotion, and desire can be transmuted into power if properly controlled." The Stoics had spoken of it too, though in different words. They called it metanoia, the transformation of passion into purpose. Both men, centuries apart, pointing to the same truth, that emotion is not the enemy, misuse is. He exhales slowly, feeling the pulse in his chest. That same fire that once distracted him now fuels him. He has not killed emotion, he has refined it. He remembers the old days, the arguments, the frustration, the restless need to prove something. That was raw energy, wild and unshaped. He wasted it on reaction, but now he redirects it. Emotion, he realizes, is pure power. But power without discipline destroys. Only through control does it become creation. He looks at his reflection in the glass, eyes steady, calm, alive. He speaks quietly, but his words cut like steel. My emotions are not chains, they are engines. The words vibrate inside him. He feels them rearranging the wiring of his mind. Anger becomes drive. Fear becomes awareness. Desire becomes focus. This is emotional alchemy, the Stoic art of turning fire into fuel. He remembers Hill's voice again, as if the old philosopher himself stood beside him. Every man who achieves enduring success has learned to transmute his emotions into constructive effort. The man smiles faintly. It sounds like Hill wrote those words for him. He thinks back to the day he almost quit when fatigue, frustration, and doubt all came at once. He could have stopped. He could have drowned in his own feelings. Instead, he turned the weight into motion. That decision, small, unseen, was transmutation in action. He steps away from the window. The air feels electric. Every breath charged with intent. He begins his routine, the same one, the same rhythm. But this time it feels different. It's alive. Every motion carries emotion, but none of it controls him. He lifts, he breathes, he moves. With each repetition, emotion flows through him like current through wire, guided, contained, powerful. The Stoics believe that energy is neither good nor bad. It simply is. The meaning comes from how it's directed. Hill proved it. Every great leader, every innovator, every titan learned to channel emotion instead of drowning in it. He understands now the difference between chaos and creation is intention. He wipes sweat from his forehead, eyes narrowed, a faint grin crossing his face. Emotion once made him impulsive. Now it makes him relentless. He sits afterward, breath slowing, heartbeat steadying. He feels the familiar waves of emotion, pride, fatigue, hunger, ambition passing through him. None linger. All are used. This is the power that most men never discover. That emotion, when mastered, becomes infinite energy. He remembers reading Hill's line, "Man's greatest motivating force is his desire to please others, to gain recognition, or to love and be loved." The old self lived for that recognition. The new self channels it. The desire for approval becomes a commitment to excellence. The longing for love becomes devotion to purpose. The energy never disappears, it just changes form. And do not suppress emotion. I redirect it. He repeats it again, slower this time, feeling every syllable settle into truth. When frustration comes, he trains harder. When doubt comes, he studies longer. When fear comes, he moves anyway. Emotion has become his signal, not his sentence. He looks around the room, simple, disciplined, silent, nothing excessive, nothing distracting. This environment mirrors his mind, now clean, ordered, purposeful. He recalls the Stoic phrase, "A blazing fire makes flame and brightness out of everything that is thrown into it." He nods slowly. Yes, that is emotional transmutation. To take whatever life throws, pain, loss, temptation, and turn it into light. He stands again, breathing evenly. The fire within him hums, not wild, not angry, but focused, alive. The same fire that once burned him now warms him. Napoleon Hill's words echo once more. No man can succeed without first mastering his emotions. He realizes that discipline isn't about suppression, it's about transformation. Every emotion is energy, and energy, when channeled, becomes creation. He thinks of anger once an explosion, now a forge. He thinks of fear once paralysis, now precision. He thinks of desire once distraction, now devotion. Every feeling becomes a tool in the hands of a master. He walks toward the mirror again, the ritual continues. He stares at his reflection, not to admire, but to confirm. Control has been reclaimed. Emotion now bows before purpose. He whispers to himself, "Let no feeling rule me. Let every feeling serve me." That is the law. That is emotional transmutation. He knows life will continue to test him. There will be losses, betrayals, temptations, exhaustion. The emotions will rise again, but that is their nature. His role is not to resist them, but to reroute them toward destiny. He feels gratitude not because the journey is easy, but because it's honest. Emotion is no longer something to fear. It's something to use. The air feels lighter now. His energy, sharper. His presence, undeniable. This is what Hill meant by power. This is what the Stoics meant by virtue. Different words, same truth. The man who can master his emotional energy becomes a force that nothing external can stop because nothing internal can betray him. He closes his eyes one last time. The violin fades, replaced by silence deep, complete, divine. Emotion is fire. I am the flame keeper. He opens his eyes. The world waits, loud and chaotic, but he no longer fears its noise because his inner current hums louder. Every heartbeat, every breath, every emotion perfectly transmuted into purpose. The law of emotional transmutation is alive within him now, no longer theory, but truth. And as he steps forward into the day, calm and powerful, the old world burns behind him. Not in destruction, in transformation, for he has learned to take the fire that once consumed him and use it to light his path. The man sits before his desk, his journal open, his pen still. He is not writing, he is waiting. Patience, the rarest discipline, the quiet strength that separates the impulsive from the immortal. Napoleon Hill once wrote, "Patience, persistence, and perspiration make an unbeatable combination for success." He had already mastered persistence and perspiration, but patience, that was the final test. The Stoics knew this test well. They called it temperantia, the control of impulse, the stillness before response. They believed that time was not the enemy, but the teacher. That delay was not denial, but design. The man breathes in slowly. He has learned to conquer his body. He has learned to master emotion. Now, he must learn to rule time. He once wanted everything quickly, results, recognition, rewards. But the universe, he's discovered, moves by rhythm, not rush. Every seed blooms on its own schedule. Every destiny unfolds at its own pace. To the impatient, delay feels like death. To the disciplined, delay is gestation, the unseen building of strength. He remembers the old version of himself checking progress every hour, judging effort by immediate outcomes, frustrated when results did not arrive fast enough. Now he understands. Impatience was insecurity disguised as ambition. What grows slowly endures deeply. He whispers the words aloud. They sound ancient, the kind of truth that doesn't impress but anchors. Outside, rain begins to fall soft, steady. The sound fills the silence like a metronome, each drop a reminder. Patience is not passive. It's rhythm. It's trust. He writes in his journal at last, slow strokes across the page. I will wait without weakening. The Stoics taught that time reveals character, that the man who can wait watches himself transform. Waiting burns away impatience, doubt, and ego, leaving only clarity. He recalls one of Hill's laws. The ladder of success is never crowded at the top. He understands now why, because few can endure the climb without demanding shortcuts. He leans back, listening to the rain. The mind begins to wander. The old temptation whispers, "You should be farther by now. You should have more." He closes his eyes and smiles. That voice once controlled him. Now it amuses him. He answers it silently. Progress is not a race, it's a rhythm. I move when it's time. That single thought quiets the noise instantly. He realizes something profound, that most men destroy their dreams, not through failure, but through haste. They uproot their own seeds before they've had time to bloom. The Stoic emperor Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "No great thing is created suddenly. Every moment of waiting, every season of silence, every delay is divine engineering preparing the man for what he asked for." He thinks of the blacksmith's forge. Metal is not made strong by a single strike. It's heated, cooled, struck, and shaped over and over until it learns to hold its form. So too with purpose. Each moment of delay is a strike of refinement. He exhales. He feels peace. The discipline of delay is not the art of waiting, it is the art of trusting. He looks around his room, no distractions, no movement, just the sound of time passing. He smiles. Time used to terrify him. Now it obeys him, because he has learned to move with it, not against it. He recalls a line from Hill's Law of Compensation. Your rewards in life will always be in exact proportion to your service. Service requires time. The seed must serve the soil before it earns the sundae. He looks down at his hands. They have learned to move without rush, to act without frenzy. The strength of a man is not shown in how fast he moves, but in how calmly he waits. He takes another breath and closes the journal. The candle flickers. He stands and looks outside. The rain has stopped. The street glistens like polished stone. The world has been washed clean. He feels the same inside, washed of hurry, polished by patience. He understands now that delay is a divine filter. It separates the curious from the committed, the wishful from the willing. Those who quit in delay prove they never truly wanted what they chased. Those who stay become unstoppable. He remembers the early mornings when he worked with no results, the nights when effort seemed invisible, the silence between progress and reward. He realizes now those were not empty spaces. They were foundations. Delay does not deny destiny. It prepares it. He says the words quietly. They feel eternal. The Stoics believed that impatience was a form of arrogance, the belief that your timing is better than the universe's. He chuckles softly. How foolish he once was, demanding perfection on his schedule. Now he moves slower, but everything he touches endures longer. He understands that the disciplined man doesn't wait idly, he builds while he waits. Each day, he improves something small. His skill, his focus, his mindset. He knows that time rewards the one who keeps showing up when no one's watching. Hill called it persistence of faith, believing in the unseen until it becomes seen. The man turns away from the window. He kneels, resting his palms on the ground, grounded, grateful. He whispers, barely audible, "I trust the delay. It is shaping me." The words settle in the air, heavy with truth. He feels calm now, not the calm of rest, but the calm of control. He is not waiting for the right moment. He is becoming the man the moment requires. Outside, the first stars appear distant, patient, ancient. They have burned for millions of years without rush, without applause, without pause. He looks at them and smiles. That's patience, eternal, luminous, disciplined. He stands tall. Time is no longer his master. It is his mirror. Each second reflects his composure, his trust, his quiet command. Patience is the highest form of discipline. He repeats it one last time, and the clock's ticking slows in his mind until even time itself feels still. The night is silent. The man is steady. The mission continues. He no longer fears the delay. He wields it, for he knows what is built slowly is built forever. Every man fights two wars, one against the world and one within himself. The first is loud, visible, praised. The second is silent, unseen, undefeated by most. This is the invisible battle, the struggle between will and weakness, between the voice that commands and the one that complains. Napoleon Hill wrote, "You are the master of your fate, the captain of your soul." But he knew what most forget: mastery begins not in victories over others, but in the unseen victories over self. The man breathes slowly, his pulse steady. He remembers the times he broke the excuses he once justified, the comfort he once worshipped. Every defeat in his past was not from circumstance, it was from surrender. Not to the world, but to himself. He whispers under his breath, "My only enemy is my comfort." He looks around his room, quiet, disciplined, bare. No distractions, no indulgence. He built this space like a soldier builds his camp, nothing unnecessary, nothing that weakens. The Stoics taught that the greatest battle is fought not in arenas, but in the mind. Seneca wrote, "No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself." He thinks of all those who avoid the fight, the endless scrolling, the mindless pleasure, the illusion of ease. They win small moments, but lose their empire. He decided long ago he would rather bleed for greatness than suffocate in comfort. The invisible battle begins every morning. When the alarm sounds, the war starts. A single decision, to rise or to remain, to command or to comply. He rises every time, not because it's easy, but because it's sacred. Each victory, no matter how small, rewires the soul. He recalls Hill's principle. Every adversity, every failure, every heartache carries with it the seed of an equal or greater benefit. He smiles faintly. That seed only grows in battle. The candle burns lower, the flame trembles. He stares at it, realizing the flame doesn't fear the dark. It exists because of it. So too must man embrace opposition. Without resistance, there is no refinement. He closes his eyes. Inside, he feels two voices. One says, "Rest. You've done enough." The other whispers, "Continue. You are not yet who you can be." He opens his eyes. The choice is clear. I will choose progress over peace, growth over comfort. His breath steadies. The invisible battle doesn't end in a single victory. It's fought daily, endlessly. The warrior's secret is not perfection, but persistence. He stands and walks toward the window. Outside, the city glows thousands of lights, thousands of lives, most asleep in comfort, few awake in pursuit. He realizes that discipline isolates not as punishment, but as preparation. The higher the mission, the smaller the crowd. The Stoics believed that self-control was divine because it separated man from beast. The weak obey impulse. The wise command it. He tightens his fist slowly, not in anger, but in ownership. Each temptation resisted is a weapon forged. Each delay mastered is armor strengthened. Each failure faced with faith is a sword sharpened. He remembers Hill's teaching. One who controls their mind may find the way to achieve anything they desire. That's the secret most ignore. The invisible battle is not about denial, but direction. Energy not wasted on weakness becomes the force that shapes destiny. He walks back to the mirror. His reflection looks the same, but he knows something deeper has shifted. He can see it in the stillness of his gaze, the calm of a man who no longer runs from the fight within. He whispers again, "My mind is my kingdom. My discipline is my throne." The room feels sacred now, not empty, but charged. He realizes that every disciplined act is a declaration of sovereignty. Each choice to resist distraction, each decision to persist through pain, is a coronation of control. The invisible battle is never won permanently. It must be fought every day, in silence, in solitude, in the unseen hours. But each day, the warrior grows stronger, the enemy weaker. He smiles faintly because now he understands. It was never about eliminating weakness. It was about transforming it into strength. He remembers the early days, the endless struggle, the frustration, the falls. He remembers how he once thought discipline was punishment. Now he knows it's liberation. The man who conquers himself is untouchable. The world cannot seduce what he does not need. The storm cannot shake what he has already mastered within. I do not fight to win. I fight to remember who I am. The words hang in the air like a vow. The candle finally burns out. Darkness floods the room, but he doesn't move. The light may have vanished, but he carries another flame within. The invisible battle continues. But now he welcomes it not as a curse, but as a companion, because he understands one truth carved into his soul by discipline and silence alike. There is no peace without struggle, and no mastery without battle. He breathes deeply, slow, unshaken. The darkness feels familiar, almost friendly now. He has learned to see within it. The war inside no longer drains him, it defines him. It reminds him that life is not about ease, but evolution. That resistance is not punishment, but proof. Every day I fight the invisible battle, and every day I win a little more of myself. He stands, straightens his shoulders, the unseen soldier of his own soul. Outside, night deepens fast and endless, but within him, dawn has already begun. Because when a man conquers the invisible, he commands the impossible. The world outside begins its noise again, cars, footsteps, ambition. But in this room, there is stillness. Not the stillness of pause, but of power. He has fought every battle within himself, the hunger for control, the impatience of time, the invisible war of will. Now, there is only peace, the kind of peace that follows conquest, not of others, but of the self. Napoleon Hill once wrote, "Peace of mind is the highest achievement of success." He understands that now. Discipline was never about restriction. It was the road that led here to calm. He opens his eyes slowly. The light feels different, warmer, wiser. He looks around the room. Same desk, same mirror, same silence. Yet everything has changed because he has changed. The Stoics called this state ataraxia, unshakable tranquility. It is not absence of emotion. It is the mastery of response. He takes a slow breath, each inhale a reminder of presence, each exhale a quiet release of everything that once ruled him. For the first time, he does not seek progress. He embodies it. He does not chase the future, he commands it by existing fully in this moment. I am unmoved by what I cannot control. I am guided by what I can. The words are not affirmation now, they are truth. He remembers the dawns of doubt, the nights of delay, the silent wars. He remembers how often he thought peace was something to achieve, another summit to climb. Now he knows. Peace was never found in arrival. It was hidden in acceptance. He stands and walks toward the window. The city is waking, lights flickering on, life beginning again. He smiles faintly. The noise no longer pulls at him. The world moves fast. He moves deliberately. The Stoics taught, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. That realization is the eternal calm, when the mind no longer fights the waves, but becomes the ocean itself. He looks down at his hands, steady, scarred, sovereign. Every mark a memory, every callus a confession. They have built discipline, shaped habits, forged identity, but now they rest. Not from exhaustion, but from mastery. He whispers softly, the storm has served its purpose. In that instant, everything slows, the air, the heart, the thought. It's as if time itself bows in silence. He sits again, closes his eyes, listens to the world as if it were breathing with him. Each inhale acceptance, each exhale surrender, each heartbeat rhythm of mastery. This is what Napoleon Hill meant by definiteness of purpose, not endless striving, but clear being, not chaos, but command. He reflects on the journey, the first mirror, the first vow, the fire of control, the patience of delay, the invisible battle. Each chapter was a test, each test a transformation, each transformation a revelation. Now all of them dissolve into silence, the silence of knowing. True discipline is not force, it is harmony. He smiles a small, timeless smile, the kind that doesn't need witnesses. He realizes he no longer measures his worth by what he achieves, but by what he maintains. Composure, focus, faith. The Stoics called this eudaimonia, the good spirit within. Hill called it success consciousness. He calls it freedom. Outside, the sun finally clears the horizon. The first full light of day touches his face. It feels like benediction, not a gift from above, a reflection from within. He rises slow, deliberate, royal in his stillness. Every movement now carries gravity, the quiet authority of a man who commands himself. He whispers one last time, words that belong not just to him, but to every soul that dares to master itself. I am the calm after every storm. I am the order beyond the noise. I am the master within the man. The music swells low, triumphant, eternal. The camera drifts back. The man stands alone in his room, yet he feels infinite. No applause, no witnesses, just the sound of a quiet mind. The journey is complete. The war is over. And what remains is peace.